Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very, very well. We saw SummerSlam, didn't we? Did you see it coming? Did any of us see it coming? What a show. What an interesting show. It was a really, really good show, I must say. I actually did really, really enjoy it. SummerSlam, of course, took place tonight at the Amway Center in Orlando, Florida, inside the WWE ThunderDome. The tagline was "You'll never see it coming," and in fairness, not a lot of people saw it coming. There were some people, I do know some people in the know, that were aware of the big surprise at the end of the show. You can obviously see him there on the graphic. Roman Reigns returns to the WWE for the first time since March after going away due to health and safety concerns due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But Roman Reigns has made his first appearance on WWE television in it must be 4 or 5 months since March. So big ending to the show. A lot of reaction, a lot of people talking about it. And I must say overall, before we get into the nitty gritty, and there's a lot to get into of tonight's show, I must say it was just a tremendous, tremendous show. Overall, I thought it was great. Really, really enjoyed it. Really, really thought every match really delivered. There were obviously things I liked and some things I thought could have been improved on, and some things that I thought maybe they should change. But overall, in terms of the show, I thought it was a very good show. And we'd heard all of these discussions and talk coming into the show that this weekend the whole WWE moving to the ThunderDome, moving to the Amway Center in Orlando was a bit of a creative restart of sorts for WWE. They were going to have some returns, we were going to have new storylines, big impact storylines, and that's exactly what we got. So absolutely thought the show was good, thought the show delivered, and we'll get into the nitty gritty of it now. So I was actually going to be participating in the ThunderDome tonight, as I attempted to do for SmackDown Pass on Friday night. However, I must say, I did manage to get into the ThunderDome early, and I was going to participate in it, but again, I was having issues with it being very laggy and just difficult to watch. And then I came to the conclusion of, like, my viewing experience doesn't live or die on the ThunderDome. I'll just watch it on TV and I'll still enjoy it on TV. So that's what I did. So I decided not to continue with the ThunderDome tonight. So I don't have any insider information as to what they were doing on the ThunderDome tonight. From what I can gather on social media, I think there was a bit more prompting and a bit more directions from people in the ThunderDome tonight. So instead of what it was previously, whereby you just sat, you watched like you would at any other WWE show, this time I believe people in the ThunderDome were being encouraged to cheer and boo and react. It would appear that the people watching, or the people that were being broadcast in the audience, were a lot more reactive to stuff. They were chanting, they were reacting, they were, moving around, waving, reacting with their facial expressions. So I think that's more of WWE getting the most reactive people in the ThunderDome, but also I think there was a bit of prompting there, a bit of direction as to get to the right people to react in the way that they wanted to. So let's go into the matches, because there's quite a lot to get into here. First off, we had the WWE United States Championship on the line. This was on the kickoff show. We had MVP going up against Apollo Crews for the WWE United States Championship. A few notes here. MVP is no longer using his previous theme. He's actually gone back to an old theme of his, which was actually... He used it briefly at the end of his last WWE run in 2010. It's a theme song called "Balling," and it was actually it's recorded by MVP. MVP raps on it, and it was so he's back to using that theme, which is a bit of a throwback, but it's actually a really good theme. So I'm interested in seeing that. And we saw the Hurt Business come out in matching T-shirts and attire, so that was cool to watch. I certainly did notice during this period of time that, for me, the crowd noise, the piped in crowd noise through the Thunderdome was a lot less jarring, I felt. I thought it blended in a lot better. And whenever they had the drone shots that they used on this show, whenever they had any drone shots about just panning the ring and panning the arena, you witness how great the Thunderdome really does look. It really does look great. So Apollo Crews gets the victory here with the toss powerbomb for the victory. So he retains the WWE United States Championship. They went to a few like crowd reactions or reactions of the people at home, and they zoomed in on the screens, but you just couldn't see them. It was just blurry, which I didn't really understand. But what I did notice is there was far less black screens of people cutting out or anything like that than there were previously on SmackDown Friday. So it looks like they're getting on top of things, which is exactly what I said. As I mentioned, the WWE Thunderdome is a work in progress, and it's something that they're continuously working on, and they'll continuously try and improve. So obviously it looked like tonight they had found some forms of improvement. So that was good to see. The match itself was nothing really to write home about. I felt that the match felt very slow. MVP, since he's come back to WWE, he rarely wins. He's the manager and leader of the Hurt Business, but he's essentially the manager. Whenever managers compete, they lose, right? And MVP is the same. He's an older guy. His reason for being there is to put over the guys in the Hurt Business via his promos, but he's also there to put over younger guys in the ring when he does work. So he was never a threat to Apollo Crews there. So why was he really in the match? I think it's likely that Bobby Lashley will face Apollo Crews next, perhaps next Sunday at Payback. But the whole match just felt a bit pointless to me. We saw the match a couple of weeks ago on Raw. Apollo Crews beat MVP then. So why did we get it tonight? I don't know. The real match was Apollo Crews versus Bobby Lashley, so to have the rematch here between MVP versus Apollo Crews just felt very strange. The only positives I can see out of it is that it builds up Apollo Crews as a credible champion with a very convincing victory on a big stage. So that adds to his prospects and character, I suppose. But this match was moved to the kickoff show, and I think it's absolutely right. If I'm going to move any of the matches that were on the card tonight to the kickoff show, I think this is probably the one to do that. So I didn't have a problem with that. Let's take a look at the chat. Anthony's back with us. How you doing, mate? He says, I honestly still think Roman Reigns is the leader of Retribution, but with this tweener persona. It's a possibility. It's a possibility. We'll touch on Roman Reigns later on, of course, but he definitely had an edge to him. And from what I've gathered with the people I've spoken to, that is the point. He's meant to have this edge and a bit of a darker character. So we'll touch on that in a bit. John Elite for Life says, holy bleep, what an ending. I echo your thoughts, absolutely. It was certainly a shocking ending. Anthony also says, I'm thinking they're going to wait for Raw tomorrow or SmackDown Friday. I'm guessing that's about Roman Reigns and Retribution. We might find out Friday. Who knows? And I was surprised that we didn't have a lot of Retribution presence on the show. We only had a video package, which I'll touch on that in a second because I was very confused by that. So we had the main show open with Pyro, and it's the little things like that, isn't it? We've been out without Pyro for a while now because of the shows in the Performance Center, and I'm a very, very simple man, ladies and gentlemen. I see Pyro and I'm very, very happy. I'm a fan of the old school days when Raw and SmackDown and pay-per-view used to open with a ton of Pyro. I think it just makes shows start off hot, and it makes shows just feel bigger, feel more big time. So the Pyro tonight that was used for SummerSlam I thought was actually really, really good. So the production tonight for SummerSlam was just excellent, and you can never ever fault WWE for their production. There are certain elements of production that I would still like to change in terms of backstage vignettes and promos, but in terms of their production and the way they've built the Thunderdome, it's absolutely spectacular. It really is top of the line stuff, so it really, really is absolutely spectacular. So we started off the show with the SmackDown Women's Championship on the line. We had Bayley defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against ASUKA. As I mentioned in the United States Championship match in the kickoff show, the audio I felt is just a lot better. And by that I mean the piped-in noise that we get inside the Thunderdome. That enhanced audio looks to me like they found kind of their sweet spot in terms of being able to have some noise that reacts to the spots, the matches, the entrances. Like, for instance, when you had Asuka make her entrance, she actually got a pop. Now, even though that's an enhanced pop or a choreographed pop, it feels more like we used to in WWE. It feels more realistic and something that you would usually get when they make their entrance. So I thought that was a lot better, and I think the enhanced audio makes the matches a lot more watchable. Obviously it's not real and you do have to adjust to it, but it's far more easier to adjust than having no fans there at all, or only having a couple of NXT Performance Center recruits surrounding the ring and slapping on was it plastic shields and stuff like that. So in my opinion, I think it just makes the whole product a lot more watchable, and just along with the look of the arena, I think the look of the arena just makes the whole presentation of these shows feel a lot bigger, a lot more professional, a lot more like what we're accustomed to with WWE. So once again, credit to the production staff, credit to WWE, because I think the ThunderDome is just a massive success so far. Obviously there are issues and there are some people abusing it, and we'll get onto that later on as well. You have to give them credit for the ThunderDome because it looks very, very good. It's night and day. It's night and day. So this match, we had a couple of nice spots. Bayley hit a nice jumping cutter, which sort of turned into a guillotine over the middle rope, which looked great. We had Asuka kicking out of a Bayley to belly, which is Bayley's finish very early in the match. Very early in the match. So that was very strange. You can tell some old timers somewhere are sitting at home very upset by that. We had a couple of the drone shots as well, as I mentioned, by the production. Every time they went to those drone shots and you saw the ThunderDome and you saw the arena, it just looked absolutely great. And then we had what was a bit of the theme that they carried on through the night. Bayley hit a shin breaker on Asuka on the apron, which then led to Bayley working over Asuka's knees and ankles throughout this match, and then in Asuka versus Sasha Banks match. We actually had... So we had Bayley having Asuka in a submission, working over the leg of Asuka. But then, like you would in an actual live event, they piped in, the claps to wheel Asuka back to her feet. And again, it sounded a lot better, which I really enjoyed. Now, we had a spot in the match where Bayley went up for her trademark elbow drop, which got counted into an armbar, which I thought was a great spot. But then we had, as we transitioned into the finish here, we had Sasha Banks distract Asuka to break it up. What I did notice at this point, I put in my notes that Bayley and Asuka just have great chemistry. Absolute great chemistry. Of course, Asuka defeated Bayley to become the NXT Women's Champion in NXT all those years ago. And even back then, they had great chemistry, and they have great chemistry here. I thought their match was very, very good. So we had a couple of near falls and distractions because of Sasha Banks. But then we go into the finish where Asuka goes for the hip attack, but Bayley moves. Sasha Banks is on the ring apron. Asuka crashes into Sasha Banks with the hip attack, and then Bayley gets a small package for the victory to retain the SmackDown Women's Championship. As soon as the bell rings, Sasha Banks flies into the ring, immediately attacks Asuka after the match. Bayley and Sasha Banks use the double team, beat down Asuka because, of course, they want to weaken Asuka for the match later on in the evening. They've got half the job done. Bayley's retained the SmackDown Women's Championship. Now it's Sasha Banks' turn later on in the evening. Once again, they did this a couple of times after this, but they stopped later on because I think they realized it was a bad idea. They tried to sort of pan the screens for crowd reactions, but a camera focusing in on a camera or a screen, it turns into a blur, and it didn't look good. So I think that's something they need to realize not to do again. But I thought it was a really fun opener and a good opener. It kind of feels a little bit like with with Bayley and Sasha Banks, that at the moment, if they get a win, it's marred by either controversy, a roll-up, interference. I know they're the heels, but it feels like it's a bit OTT at the moment. And I just feel like the screwy finishes, the roll-ups, the distractions, they feel like they're just happening quite a lot at the moment on WWE television or in WWE matches. We would actually get another roll-up later on the show here as well. So I just could have done without the screwy finish, but I thought it was a fun match, and I thought it was a very good match and a good opener. As I mentioned, Asuka and Bayley have tremendous chemistry, so enjoyed that one. We then go to a backstage promo between Dominik Mysterio and Rey Mysterio. He says to his dad that he doesn't want Rey Mysterio to get involved. Rey Mysterio gives his word, and Dominik says that this is just because it's between Rollins and Dominik Mysterio, and due to everything that happened with Rey Mysterio in the past, he doesn't want his father to get involved in the match later on in the evening. Now, when I first saw this, I thought, why would he say that? But it was a very, very smart move and a logical move that they played up very, very well in the match. So credit to WWE, because it was a big, it could have been a logical loophole that a lot of people would have picked up there. during the match, so I thought it was very, very good. We then had a hype package for Retribution. Yes, it must have been at least 2-3 minutes on this promo package on all of the chaos that Retribution has done in the WWE over the last few weeks. And it just blew my mind. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? This is why this faction is struggling. This is why this idea and this gimmick isn't getting people on board, because it doesn't make sense. You're trying to play off that this is a group of people, you don't know who they are, so we don't know if they're technically signed to WWE, right? They could just be anyone. And a group of unsigned people destroy the performance center, they blow up generators, they cut down ring ropes, they graffiti stuff, they attack people, you destroy the company, its employees, and what happens? You get rewarded with TV time and hype packages on TVs and pay-per-views and on the third biggest show of the year. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and that's the biggest problem with Retribution at the moment. For a chaotic stable, there's no chaos, and it doesn't make any sense. There is so many. I praised WWE in the sentence prior. I praised WWE for the logic, because there was great logic in what the Dominic and Rey Mysterio segment. There was no logic in the Retribution hype package deck. Why would you do it? Why? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So next up, we had the Raw Tag Team Championships on the line. Before the match started, we have Kevin Owens coming out for commentary. And look, it's great to have Kevin Owens on commentary. And I enjoyed having Kevin Owens on commentary. I thought he did fine. But to me, it's just sad. It's just sad because Kevin Owens, man, he is just worth so much more. He's worth so much more. The guy is a Universal Champion, WWE Champion level talent. Kevin Owens, when he made his debut on the main roster, he was the biggest heel in NXT. He's a former Universal Champion. He was part of one of the hottest angles of the Best Friends of Chris Jericho. And he beat Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. And now he's doing commentary on the Street Profits Raw Tag Team title match. So the Raw Tag Team Championships don't mean anything on Monday Night Raw. And I just thought, oh man, that sucks. That sucks. Kevin Owens deserves to be more. And look, I think a lot of people want to cheer for Kevin Owens, and Kevin Owens is a great babyface. A lot of people like him. But is this babyface character really the best for him? He's doing commentary on SummerSlam, and I think he's better than that. So that's just something that really stood out to me when I saw him coming out. I was like, oh, it's great. Kevin Owens on commentary. Guy should be working, though. Guy should be working. The Street Profits made their entrance and actually rained red solar cups. So red solar cups fell from the ceiling the same way that when Gold Dust would make his entrance back in the Attitude Era, you had to have gold dust literally raining from the rafters. You'd have JBL come out sometimes, or Shane McMahon. You'd have money fall from the ceilings. For this time with Street Profits, it's red cups that rain from the heavens. I thought that was a pretty cool entrance there by the Street Profits. I also noticed at this point when I was having the interactions, we've seen the interactions between Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens on commentary. I thought, look, if you're going to put Kevin Owens on commentary, can we not just have Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe just on commentary all the time? I mean, they would be the Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon, wouldn't they, of the modern era. A commentary team of Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens is a mythic commentary team. They'll never do it. But I think that would be a lot of fun if that's what if they're going to insist on having Kevin Owens on commentary, have him with Samoa Joe, just those two. Get rid of Byron Saxton and Tom Phillips, have those guys do it. So what was quite cool as well is that when Kevin Owens came out, you actually saw people on the screens cheering and getting into it, which I thought was pretty cool to see because we haven't seen that for a long time. So for the majority of this match, they worked over Montez Ford. Of course, Montez Ford was the guy who got poisoned, right? He got poisoned previously on Raw, so they worked over him. I did notice a little thing here that Andrade and Angel Garza actually had matching gear, which was a little bit of a throw-off mix. I thought, oh, if they've got matching gear, maybe they're going to be a long-term tag team and they're going to win the tag titles here. Boy, was I wrong. But I thought matching gear was cool. The best tag teams have matching gears, so that was a tick from me. My biggest takeaway from this match, which is my biggest takeaway from most matches involving Angel Garza, is Angel Garza is just so good. I mean, he is so good. He is such a future star, a big money star, They've talked about for years and years, how do we replace Rey Mysterio? That was always the big thing. Who's the next big Hispanic babyface? They tried it with Sin Cara, didn't work. They tried it with Alberto Del Rio, didn't work. They tried to do it with Humberto Carrillo, didn't work. Eventually, in the end, they had to get Rey Mysterio back because they couldn't replace Rey Mysterio. Possibly the irony here now is the person to replace Rey Mysterio might actually be his son, because his son's performance was just spectacular tonight. But as I mentioned in this match, one of the biggest things that stood out to me was that Angel Garza is just brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. He is so good. He is so talented, and I think he's going to have such a massive career in WWE. Because this match, that was my biggest takeaway from this, is that was the majority of my notes is Angel Garza is unbelievable. He's absolutely fantastic. So we go to the finish here, where we have Zelina Vega's up on the apron. Angel Garza super kicks Montez Ford, who bumps into Zelina Vega, who then falls off the apron. This causes Andrade to go check on Zelina Vega. Therefore, there is nobody for Angel Garza to tag. This then leads Angelo Dawkins hitting the cash out onto Angel Garza, and then Montez Ford hits the frog splash, and the Street Profits retain the Raw Tag Team Championships. The match itself was okay. I didn't think it was anything spectacular. But that finish, to me, that just screamed, okay, split up Andrade and Garza already. If the story that you're insisting to tell here is that Andrade and Angel Garza argue and they can't get along, then you've done it. They've done that to death at this point. How long have they been doing the whole, Angel Garza and Andrade, they can't get along? Months. The whole point of this angle with the Street Profits is that they put that behind him, and they were now a functioning tag team. Well, they're not. And if that's your finish, that these guys can't get along, then just split them up, because they're worth more money in singles runs anyway. You know, Angel Garza and Andrade are worth more in singles than a tag team. So split them up. You don't need to do this bickering every single week of, they can't get along, they don't get along. Zelina Vega's trying to get them along. That finish of Zelina Vega taking the bump off the apron, one of the people checking on him and leaving the other one in the ring. They've done that at least twice on Monday Night Raw. So I was a bit disappointed to see the same finish again, and the same, okay, they can't get along, that's the finish. It felt a bit tired, that one for me. But for me, Angel Garza as a singles, he's going to be a big star. I'm just bored of the arguing tag team partner story now. I don't care for it anymore. I think it's boring at this point, because they've done it to death. Kevin Owens also made an announcement after the match. He announced that tomorrow night on Monday Night Raw, he is inviting Aleister Black to be a guest on the Kevin Owens show. We haven't seen Aleister Black in a few weeks since Seth Rollins took him out. He did the eye injury that he did to Rey Mysterio to Aleister Black, and he'd also did an arm injury the week prior. Interesting to see what that consists of tomorrow night with Aleister Black, because there have been rumours that there might actually be a gimmick change for Aleister Black, or a slight gimmick change, or a look change. So perhaps we'll see a new version of Aleister Black tomorrow night on Monday Night Raw. That will be interesting. I'll be doing a Monday Night Raw post-show stream as well at the same time, 11:30 tomorrow, so be sure to check that out on the channel. Be sure to give us a subscribe as well if you haven't subscribed already to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner. Also, you can, if you have enjoyed this video or this stream, or you enjoy what we do, click smash a like on the like button as well. That really does help us out on YouTube, get up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if no one's seen our stuff before. But yeah, I think that's interesting about what potentially we could see tomorrow with Aleister Black. What do you think we're going to see with Aleister Black tomorrow? I have a concern that we might see a real different gimmick change. If that is the case, it will be very very interesting to say the least, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. So after the match also, we had an interview with Bayley and Sasha Banks backstage. Sasha Banks, again, plants seeds for this future split up with Bayley. She says, if Bayley can beat Asuka, then I know I can beat Asuka, which kind of got a sly look from Bayley, like, what? But Bayley says it's going to be a clean sweep tonight, and then she holds the broom to extenuate that it is going to be a clean sheet. Get it? A clean sweep, and she's a sweep, right? It's funny. It's funny. So next we had the Mandy Rose versus Sonya Deville no DQ loser leaves WWE. Of course, originally this was going to be a hair versus hair match, but due to the circumstances of what happened to Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose just 7 days ago, it got changed to a no disqualification loser leaves WWE match. The thing I thought just during this match was just what this could have been. And it was crazy to me that this was now a career versus career match. Loser leaves WWE. And that's all because of the actions of one crazy psycho fan who doesn't deserve to see the light of day again. He's thankfully been denied bail. The more details that come out about the case of the guy that attempted the kidnapping of Sonya Deville and broke into her house with the knife and the zip ties and the rope and all of that sort of horrible stuff. It's horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying. It's absolutely shocking. And, it's terrifying. And credit to Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose, because of course Mandy Rose was at the property as well. Credit to both of them for performing to the level that they did tonight and being able to somehow perform on SmackDown this past week, because I can't imagine the psychological strain and toll that must put on them, and it must have been a horrible experience, an absolutely horrifying experience. And it's a shame because I almost feel a bit uncomfortable complaining, saying, well, the hair versus hair match would have been great, but it's not even about that at this point, right? These are human beings, and that could have gone very, very badly, what happened to both of them last weekend. And yes, a hair versus hair match would have been my preference, because I think it would have been a SummerSlam moment. And I don't think it would have been better, because if the hair versus hair match would have happened, then the incident would have happened last weekend, and that's the thing that we want to have disappeared. But it's just a shame. It's just a shame. But credit to them for performing. It can't be easy. What a horrible 7 days it's been for them both. But the match itself, it felt quite short, and there wasn't a lot of substance to it, really. Mandy Rose hit a clothesline off the announce table, which is pretty nice. Mandy Rose gets out a table. For the life of me, I don't know why, but she could not get that table to stand up. She must have took at least a minute to try and stand this table up. But during that time, Sonya Deville managed to get a chair. She hit her with a chair. Sonya Deville then used a Dragon Sleeper on Mandy Rose, which is cool. The biggest thing that I took away from this is that Sonya Deville, and in the same way that the thing I was thinking with the Raw Tag Titles match, that I was thinking about Angel Garza being a star, that's what I thought here. I was just watching this match thinking Sonya Deville just feels like such a big star, and she's been had such a breakout year so far. It's just horrible, the circumstances now, but she just felt like a massive star in this match. And I thought she came across very, very well. So Mandy Rose, after hitting several running knee strikes, gets the victory, and Sonya Deville leaves WWE. It didn't feel like a no DQ match. Of course, I know the steel chair was involved, and they had the table, which they didn't really do much with in the end. But it didn't really feel like the no DQ. There was much to that. It was strange, that element of it. But that's what that is. Post-match, Mandy Rose does the Caterpillar with Otis. I expected Sonya Deville to lose this. That was what I said in my predictions, and it's sad. Hopefully she will be back. I would hope that she will be back. Hopefully she hasn't decided that all of this just isn't worth it, considering what happened to her. And she's not the first for it to happen to. There have been lots of people on the WWE roster, male and female, that get these horrible messages, and I think the Sonya Deville case has opened a lot of eyes to a lot of people on the roster to be like, okay, this is insane. This is insane. So hopefully she will be back. Given recent events and what happened, it makes sense for her maybe to go away for a while. Maybe she is needed for the upcoming trial for all of this, and given what happened to her, I'm sure it's very psychologically scarring, and maybe she needs time just to reevaluate things, decompress, and just take some time away from the spotlight. And I don't blame her. I really don't blame her. I just think the timing is so unfortunate, because she's such a star, and even if she does come back, and I hope she will, and I think she will, but I think given when she comes back, she'll be an even bigger star. Maybe she takes some time off and she moves to Raw during the upcoming draft. We know there's going to be a draft soon, so maybe that's a possibility. As far as the match, not a lot happened, and as I mentioned, the no DQ part of it just wasn't really used, which was a bit confusing. But for me to criticize this match would be ridiculous, because given what happened to them over the last 7 days, the match is secondary. And I just credit to them for competing and for what must be a horrible situation. So absolute credit to them. And Sonya Deville, this isn't hopefully not the end for her. She's got had a standout year so far. She's been absolutely brilliant. So hopefully this isn't the end for her, and hopefully we'll see her again on WWE TV very, very soon. So next up, we had the street fight between Dominik Mysterio and Seth Rollins. Dominik Mysterio's in-ring WWE debut. This is one of the matches I was really looking forward to. I thought that this could be something very, very special, and I wasn't wrong. Now, Seth Rollins came out. He was actually wearing a play on the 1997 Halloween Havoc Rey Mysterio gear, which was absolutely fantastic. What a throwback that is. Not only is it an iconic Rey Mysterio gear, but it's actually a match he faced Eddie Guerrero. Of course, in storyline, we had the Eddie Guerrero, Dominik, and Rey Mysterio storyline in 2005. I love that sort of stuff. I love trash talking. I love subtleties in gears and just storytelling and stuff like that. I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. The Astronomy says, I saw myself in the Thunderdome multiple times. Awesome. How were your experiences with the Thunderdome tonight? Let me know your experiences, what happened in the live chat, and we can discuss that. So Dominik Mysterio made his debut, his in-ring WWE debut, 15 years after the custody for him, that match in 2005. So Dominik, I overall, before I get into the finer details, gotta say, Dominik Mysterio absolutely killed it. He was just absolutely phenomenal. So he started the match that he did a couple of arm drags, kip up by Dominik, which was great. It was just really surreal, I felt, watching this. Just really surreal seeing Dominik Mysterio compete in the ring. It made me feel old, because I remember watching WWE when he was on WWE TV as a kid, and here he is performing. But Seth Rollins also was great in this match. He was doing a lot of trash talking, which was great. He dominated early on, which I thought was likely. They also showed Angie Mysterio, Rey Mysterio's wife, Dominik Mysterio's mother, watching backstage. She genuinely had a look of concern on her face, and people were like, "Oh, it's great acting." I don't think it was acting. When you see your 23-year-old son getting the hell beaten out of him by a kendo stick, you do look quite worried. It isn't ballet, so I thought she did her job great there. I thought she did great. Rey, at certain points in this match, of course, was at ringside. Murphy was at ringside for Seth Rollins, but Rey Mysterio was at ringside for his son. And Rey Mysterio wanted to get involved several times, but Dominik waved him off. And again, that was really logical. Because why wouldn't Rey get in the ring? Because Dominik asked him to. And I'm really glad they put that little fine detail in there earlier on in the show, because it makes sense. That's logic. Because otherwise, this is a guy's son. Why wouldn't he just get in the ring and fight? Because his son told him to. It's perfect sense. I love that little detail of that. I thought it was great. So you had Dominik Mysterio use a kendo stick on Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins then hit an avalanche Falcon Arrow off a superplex by Seth Rollins. I thought that was great. After Dominik used the kendo stick, Rollins managed to use a kendo stick of his own, hit about 1 million shots, and they were vicious. They were absolutely vicious shots. But Dominik managed to fight back. He hits a Russian leg sweep using the kendo stick off the top rope through a table. That was a nice spot. He then hits a frog splash for a 2 count, which was great. Seth Rollins in this match as well. A powerbomb was the theme of the night here, because Seth Rollins at one point just powerbombed the hell out of Dominik Mysterio. I mean, he absolutely powerbombed the living heck out of him. You nearly saw his body, his soul leave his body. It was that hell of a powerbomb. But I think I'm put down in my notes here as well is that Dominik Mysterio's selling is really, really good. And for 23 years old, he is just, he is going to be a great babyface because he can sell. He can sell, and he evokes empathy and sympathy from people, and that's ultimately the really important thing with selling and with evoking emotion in WWE and in professional wrestling. So the fact that he can sell this good now, that he's just going to be a great babyface. He's going to be a fantastic babyface. So Seth Rollins continues to brutalize Dominik with the kendo stick over and over again. You start to see the welts come on the back of Dominik. Seth Rollins during this period of time is continuing to taunt Rey Mysterio, shouting at him. And then Angie Mysterio, Dominik's mother, she has enough. She comes out, stands on the entrance ramp. Rey Mysterio runs over to her, tries to convince his wife not to get involved or do anything like that. But this is when Buddy Murphy comes in and starts to attack Dominik. And he attempts to shove Dominik's eye into the steel steps, the same way that happened to Rey Mysterio. But Rey Mysterio makes the save. There was, in fairness to Seth Rollins as well, I mean, there were welts on the back of Dominik Mysterio from the kendo stick shots, but there were also welts on the back from Seth Rollins from the shots from Dominik Mysterio as well. So Dominik gave as good as Seth Rollins in this match. So Seth Rollins and Murphy then handcuff Rey Mysterio to the ring ropes. They bring out some handcuffs, handcuff Rey Mysterio to the ring ropes. They both have kendo sticks, and then Seth Rollins, and I loved this because it's so evil and it's such a great heel move. He then sets his eyes on Angie, because there's one Mysterio that Seth Rollins hasn't hurt yet, and that's Angie Mysterio, and you're thinking, oh my God, he wouldn't. And Seth Rollins starts walking over to her, and you're thinking, oh my God, he wouldn't dare. But Dominik Mysterio prevents that. He attacks Seth Rollins, and then Dominik Mysterio, to his credit, does an absolute unbelievable comeback. Throws Murphy into where the crowd would be, attacks Seth Rollins, hits a 619 using the ring apron to Seth Rollins, goes for a frog splash, but Seth Rollins gets the knees up. Then, of course, at this point, Rey Mysterio is still handcuffed to the ring ropes. So Seth Rollins begins to taunt Rey as he stands over Dominik. He then hits the stomp on Dominik for the victory in front of Rey Mysterio as he's handcuffed to the ropes and has to watch his son be brutalized by the Monday Night Messiah. He then hands Dominik the handcuff keys, and then Dominik eventually recovers, hands the keys to his father, and they embrace in the ring. Obviously, my description of that won't do it justice, but it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. The storytelling, the drama, the big match feel. It had a big fight feel. It was just brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. It made you feel emotion. It told stories. Dominik Mysterio, for his first performance inside of a WWE ring, his first wrestling match ever on a big stage, was fantastic. He was absolutely fantastic, knocked it out of the park. This is a weekend as well, which you've had great debuts from the likes of Pat McAfee and now great debuts from the likes of Dominik Mysterio too. And he was absolutely superb, absolutely unbelievable. This guy is going to be such a big star because he was absolutely fantastic. And you could tell that Rey Mysterio was genuinely proud of his son, and I think Dominik was genuinely happy, and he nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. And Seth Rollins, also credit to him, because this match couldn't happen without him. He obviously carried Dominik through the match. Dominik more than held his own, but Seth Rollins carried him through the match too. Rollins is an evil, sadistic, brutal heel, and I just absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. For me, match of the night, stole the show. It isn't going to be the thing that everyone's talking about because of the return, obviously, but it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. You can't fault Dominik Mysterio at all. Absolutely superb. Absolutely superb. So the Astrometry says, I was in the ThunderDome for over 2 hours, lagged a little in the beginning, but worked fine for me afterwards. The experience was amazing. Definitely recommend it to anyone who's thinking about joining. I also registered for Raw tomorrow. Also, congrats on 700 subs. Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate that. As Astrometry mentioned there, we're over 700 subscribers now, so the next goal, of course, is 800 on that long road to 1,000. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe to WrestleDudes365 here on YouTube. So the next match was the Raw Women's Championship, as Sasha Banks defended the Raw Women's Championship against Asuka. Now, as Asuka was making her entrance here, there was a person in the virtual crowd that put up a hashtag Fire Velveteen Dream sign. Interesting. Very, very interesting. I think the crazy thing about that is, and it got a lot of attention on social media, of course, as it's expected. The one thing I would say to people that are thinking about doing stuff like that is that WWE have said that they will be not only banning people, but they also could be potentially issuing fines to people. So if you're going to consider doing that, just consider that element of it as well. I think the crazy thing about this is that the production person who allowed that is more likely to get fired than the Velveteen Dream himself. I've said my piece on the Velveteen Dream thing about it, that do I think he should be fired? It's difficult when nothing has been officially proven, but he certainly shouldn't be on TV at the moment, and they certainly should be a lot clearer about what they're doing and what they have done. And just Triple H saying we looked into it isn't good enough. But that's a conversation to have at another time. So, of course, Asuka was still selling the injury from earlier in the night. This match had a horrible powerbomb spot that had like sort of a sunset flip bomb onto Asuka from the ring apron to the outside, and Asuka just splatted on the outside. Absolute splatted on the outside. It was horrible. Absolute horrible. But Asuka manages to recover. She locks in the Asuka lock to Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks rolls out and goes into the Banks statement, but Asuka rolls back into the Asuka lock. At this point as well, I noticed that there was some guy wearing a Halloween mask in the front row, and this is what I kind of worried about with the WWE ThunderDome, is that, again, I guess with the 5 Velveteen Dream part of it, and the guy holding up the teddy bear and the guy in the mask and all this sort of stuff, it's guys trying to get themselves over at the expense of the show, and that's bad enough that we get that in crowds anyway with WWE, right? So because it took me out of the match because I noticed it. So we have Bayley on the apron here. She gets a spinning back fist from Asuka. Asuka then gets Sasha Banks into the Asuka lock, which means that Sasha Banks taps out, and Asuka is the new Raw Women's Champion for the second time. Sasha Banks, of course, has failed once again to defend a singles championship on the main roster. Every time she becomes a women's champion in WWE on the main roster, she can't defend it. She loses it in the very next defense. What a weird statistic that is. Post-match, they were teasing tension between Sasha Banks and Bayley. Sasha had, if looks could kill, Bayley could be pushing up daisies right now. We all could. But I didn't understand that. Because the finish of this match wasn't Bayley's fault at all. Sasha's move got counted and she lost. I don't know if maybe she could blame Bayley to say that she should have done more, but Bayley faced a fresher Asuka. She won. Sasha Banks faced a weakened Asuka. She lost. The reason that Bayley won was a little bit of distraction by Sasha Banks. Maybe does she think Bayley should have done more? I don't know. But I don't think it's Bayley's fault. So that idea and that logic of the storytelling didn't make a lot of sense to me. Now, of course, they're teasing the match Payback quite a lot next week for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship. I think that's where they're going to drop the Women's Tag Team Championship. As of yet, we don't know who that's going to be against. I hope it's against an NXT tag team, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Again, I thought this match was good. Asuka and Sasha Banks have good chemistry as well. Every match really on this show, as I mentioned, was good. There wasn't a match that I went, that was terrible. I enjoyed every match. That powerbomb spot was a bit scary. But as I predicted, Bayley retains, but Sasha Banks drops the title. Makes a lot of sense, and it's just the next phase of this Bayley and Sasha Banks split. I saw Brian Alvarez make some comments on Twitter saying they've been teasing for 2.5 years they're going to split up Sasha Banks and Bayley, and now that they're one of the hottest acts on the show, they are going to split them up. And I was just like, dude, if you're going to... Look, I complain about stuff all the time, right? And maybe that's the problem with me, and I know a lot of professional wrestling fans complain. But it feels everything that happens, I can't believe they're doing that. The story's been there for ages. And he mentions it in the statement. They've been teasing splitting them up for 2.5 years. And they're doing it now because the story is the peak. The story is at the best that it is. You know, you got to strike while the iron's hot. Why would you split them up once the thing's not working anymore? Because the angle's dead. You missed your chance. Okay, the angle's hot at the moment. This is the time. This is the time to do it. Personally, I would rather them stretch out to WrestleMania, but it's hot at the moment. You know, they're in the Thunderdome. They're trying to turn heads and pop ratings. So I disagree with that comment. I thought that was just worth mentioning there. So next up, we have the WWE Championship on the line. I was very surprised here as Drew McIntyre defends against Randy Orton. I wasn't surprised about that because that's pretty obvious, but I was surprised that this wasn't main event. I thought that this would be the main event. I went in my predictions and preview. I said that this was going to be the main event, but it wasn't. It wasn't the main event, which was very, very interesting. Before the match, they spoke to Spawn Michael. It's late over here, guys. They spoke to Shawn Michaels at home. Apparently, Shawn Michaels is fine. So even though the punt has taken out Edge, Ric Flair, Big Show, Christian, and others in the past, Shawn Michaels, the reason he wasn't selling at all is because he's fine. Because he cut a promo on the show, no problem. So the punt kick was already dead there. So Shawn Michaels, if he didn't kill it on Monday, he killed it on the pay-per-view when he cut the promo. It just little things like that. It was just, okay. Randy Orton had his old legend killer pyro, which I thought was great. It reminded me, just a massive throwback to the legend killer days where he would come out, strike the pose, and have that sort of dripping pyro on the old Raw set. He had that here, which I thought was great. Drew McIntyre also had pyro. So this match had some nice spots in it. We had Randy Orton hit a suplex off of the announce table to the floor outside, which was cool. Randy Orton, I felt, out of all the competitors so far in the Thunderdome, I felt that Randy Orton adjusted to the virtual fans the most. I think we've seen a lot of wrestlers at the moment, rather, with this new virtual fans in the Thunderdome, still kind of in the same narrative that they were in the Performance Center, where they're playing to the camera at home, they're not playing to the camera, they're not playing to the fans in the audience, which is kind of the opposite way that they usually do that when there's a live crowd. They still do play to the crowd a little bit. Randy Orton, he just let his instincts kick in. He was like the fans were there. So he was playing with the fans there virtually. He's posing in front of them. So I thought that was great. Drew McIntyre in his match locks on a figure four, which was a nice spot. Obviously tying in the Ric Flair mentor thing that we've seen on Monday Night Raw. Randy Orton then pulled the referee and it thumbed to the eye of Drew to break up the hold. I love that. I just love classic heel psychology. So I thought that was great. But then McIntyre actually had a cut on his eye. I don't know if this was specifically by the thumb, thumb to the eye by Randy Orton, but it added to the match. So even if it was hardware, I thought it absolutely added to the match. Randy Orton, because of this, so Drew McIntyre hits Randy Orton with the Glasgow Kiss, which is a headbutt. This actually meant that Randy Orton had blood on his head too. He had Drew McIntyre's blood on his head. And again, it just upped it. It upped the levels of the match. I thought Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton have great chemistry, which was no surprise to me because they actually worked a couple of matches against each other in January of this year on Monday Night Raw, which I think some people forget about. And they had great chemistry there on the mic and in the ring. So this wasn't a surprise to me that they had such great chemistry. Some of the camera shots here, again, I thought were great. Randy Orton, this is why I thought it was great. So Randy Orton starts to do the classic, he's going to go for the RKO pose, but he had obviously Drew McIntyre's blood on his head and it's trickling down his head. And I just thought, that's such a great shot. That's such a great shot. That's a shot that just gets you lost in the match, tells the story that you're trying to tell. Love that. Love that. But instead, he decides not to go for the RKO. Instead, he sets up for the punt kick. But Drew McIntyre counters into a powerbomb. Drew McIntyre then goes for a Claymore. Randy Orton ducks, goes for the RKO. Drew McIntyre counters into the backslide and gets the victory to retain the WWE Championship. Didn't like the finish. Must say I didn't like the finish here. It's the second roll-up of the night for the victory. Positives out of it, it does prolong the feud. So you have to praise that because I think we're going to see more of Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton. Maybe at Payback, I think they might actually wait till September for this one. But a roll-up in a WWE Championship match at SummerSlam, commentators were saying, "Oh, you never saw it coming." No, I didn't like that one. Orton sold the look of shock at ringside. I can't believe this guy rolled me up. I was shocked too. They're doing a roll-up for a finish. They did that in the opening match of the show. Now, of course, the feud isn't over by any means, but the finish sucked here. The psychology, otherwise, if you took the finish out of it, the psychology was great. You had homages to Ric Flair and HBK in there. Some great spots. Randy Orton was calling the match. Obviously, he's the most experienced guy. He was great in there. His psychology, as always, is superb. But the finish was flat. and it sucked. So that was a shame. But I other than the finish, I really enjoyed this match. I just felt that the finish, whilst it does prolong the feud, I could have done without that. But it means that we're going to continue to get Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre. I predicted that Randy Orton would become WWE champion. I still think he will eventually, but this prolongs the Drew McIntyre title reign, and just means eventually the Randy Orton title victory is going to come a bit later on. So after the match, we got a announcement that Keith Lee is coming to Monday Night Raw tomorrow night. On Monday Night Raw, he will make his debut with the red brand. Of course, coming off of NXT TakeOver 30 last night, he lost the NXT Championship to Karrion Kross. A lot of people were very surprised about Keith Lee's very short NXT Championship reign. Well, of course, now this explains it all. Keith Lee is coming to Monday Night Raw, and that's why he dropped the title. There's just the fact that his recent achievements give him a bit more steam as he comes into the red brand, right? He was the first ever double champion in NXT history, former NXT champion, former North American champion. Really, really excited about this one. He's one of my favorite guys in NXT. His call-up, to be honest, I think is a bit overdue, considering what happened with him over the last year. You think of that Survivor Series finish with Roman Reigns. As soon as he did that, he should have been called up, to be honest, to Raw or SmackDown, because he was a made man then. But on top of that, he has that just spectacular finish with Roman Reigns at Survivor Series, and then he has the showdown with Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble in January, and again comes across like a total star. So really glad that he's moving to Monday Night Raw, because they need people like him on Monday Night Raw. Vince McMahon is a big fan of Keith Lee, and I know we've heard rumors we've heard that story before, right? Oh, they're a big fan, and then a year later, come SummerSlam, Keith Lee's on the kickoff show doing a dancing gimmick or whatever as the new Brodus Clay. But I don't think that will be the case here. I think Vince McMahon's a big fan of him. He knows what he's got in Keith Lee, and he's a massive asset to the Raw roster, because they need stars and they need people that can genuinely entertain, and Keith Lee's that guy. Keith Lee's that good. Keith Lee is someone that if Randy Orton had become WWE champion, I'd say, all right, get Keith Lee in the WWE title picture. Big statement, but I think he's that good. So really excited to see Keith Lee on Monday Night Raw tomorrow. Bit of a stacked show now as well. So we've got the KO show of Aleister Black returning. We've got Keith Lee. We've also probably got some other things that we'll see on the show. Maybe Retribution will be there too. So really exciting. And I just I thought that that's a great announcement, and something that I'm really looking forward to seeing tomorrow night on Monday Night Raw. So we get to the main event. I didn't think this was going to be the main event, but they went with this as the main event as opposed to Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre, and now that we know why, given the return. But it was Bray Wyatt, the Fiend Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman, Falls Count Anywhere for the WWE Universal Championship. I'd heard a rumor that Code Orange were going to actually be playing Bray Wyatt to the ring, or the Fiend to the ring, playing live. That obviously wasn't the case. That sucked, but hey, it's one of those things. They're rumors. That's just, you can't take a stock in all of these rumors. What I will say is the ThunderDome Fiend entrance is just absolutely spectacular. It really, really is. That ThunderDome Fiend entrance is really, really good. It looks amazing. It looks amazing, and it enhances the Fiend character so well. Something that I did think was interesting, as I mentioned, I was under the impression that we'd recently seen a bit of a double turn. We'd seen The Fiend become more of a babyface, and we'd seen Braun Strowman become a heel. This was kind of confirmed for me that when Braun Strowman made his entrance, they piped in boos. So there were boos for Braun Strowman, and that's WWE's choice to make the boos. So Braun Strowman looks like he's officially a heel. What I did think was good as well is for this match, we didn't have any of the Red Light of Doom. The Red Light of Doom has been left in the past in 2019 because I don't think we didn't have the red light at the Royal Rumble earlier this year with Daniel Bryan versus The Fiend. We also didn't have the red light in the Fiend versus Goldberg at Super Showdown in February. And we didn't have the red light here, which is great because it's not needed. If anything, Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, is a lot more intimidating and scary without the red light, especially in these matches. And you can just focus on it like a normal match. Considering everything that's going on in the ThunderDome, the fact that there are no fans and there are piped-in noises, we don't need we don't need red light to take us further out of the match, right? So I'm very glad that we didn't have the red light anymore. It's much better off without it. Of course, this is the first physicality we've seen between the Fiend and Braun Strowman, and like a lot of the Fiend matches, it was very, very quick and very, get a lot done in and a lot of crazy spots. You had the Fiend do the neck snap move twice on Braun Strowman. The Fiend immediately gets out a toolbox and he's laughing and cackling at ringside. But then Braun Strowman takes control a bit. He sends the Fiend through the barricade, chokeslams the Fiend onto the announce table, hits the Fiend with the steel steps, does the running power slam in the ring, but the Fiend kicks out at 2. So this is classic Fiend, right? And we see this a lot in these Fiend matches. They hit their finishes on the Fiend, throw everything they can at him, and then it's not enough, right? It's a bit formulaic, but it works for the Fiend. So Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt, they then brawl into the gorilla position. Bray Wyatt manages to fight out of it and hits a Sister Abigail in the gorilla position. You notice at this point that the gorilla position was actually empty, which I thought explained so much about Raw and SmackDown recently. Like the creative of Raw and SmackDown, we know it's chaos and it hasn't been the best recently. Well, that's why. There's no one there. There's no one in gorilla running anything. That's why it's so bad. It looked like at this point as well that Braun Strowman had received some form of a carpet burn on his head when he took the Sister Abigail in gorilla position, and I sympathise with him. Everyone, most people, right, have got a carpet burn. That hurts, especially on your head. I bet he's regretting the bold haircut now. So they brawl back out to the ring. Braun Strowman hits the second running power slam of the evening on the Fiend, but the Fiend once again kicks out at 2. Braun Strowman does the whole, what have I got to do? What can I do? What have I got to do to beat this guy? So he goes back to the toolbox that the Fiend got out earlier, gets out some box cutters, and then starts cutting up the mat, exposing the wooden boards. But of course, as the dumb babyface, even though he's not the babyface, I don't think at this point, Bray Wyatt manages to fight him down again and hits 2 Sister Abigails onto the wood. That's that. Bray Wyatt is the new Universal Champion. The finish was very sloppy, I felt. The Sister Abigails were damn near ugly. This one, Braun was like nearly barely standing up. I thought the match itself, we'll get onto the return in a second, but I thought the match itself was okay. As I mentioned, the Fiend matches are very formulaic at this point of he takes everyone's best shot. He takes the best shot, kicks out, fights back, takes the best shot again, then he gets the victory. Formulaic, but I didn't have a problem with that. And to be honest, this match wasn't about the contents of the match. It was about the post-match angle, which was, of course, the shocking return of Roman Reigns to WWE for the first time in 5 months. Since March, Roman Reigns has returned to WWE. Of course, he was taking himself off of WWE television and was self-isolating, quarantining due to COVID-19, his concerns about health and safety with COVID-19. But the moment that Bray Wyatt's got the victory, Roman Reigns spears the Fiend and attacks the Fiend, and Roman Reigns returned. He then goes to the outside, spears Braun Strowman, and just absolutely brutalizes Braun Strowman with a steel chair. He then rolls back into the ring, attacks the Fiend once again, says to him, "You're just a freak in a mask. You can't handle the responsibility of being champ. I am the guy." It came across very heelish. Very, very heelish. There was this sort of darker, more sinister tone to Roman Reigns. And he holds up the Universal Championship as we go up off the air. I gotta say, for a while, I wasn't a big Roman Reigns fan. You realise how great someone is once they're gone. And it's great to have him back. It's just great to have him back, isn't it? SmackDown, the WWE, they're hurting at the moment. Because obviously the pandemic, but just other stuff as well. They need star power. Roman Reigns, arguably in terms of the full-time guys on the roster, Roman Reigns is the biggest star that they've got right now. He is the biggest star that they've got. He's the guy. He's the guy that they've put all of their money into, their time into over the last few years. And it's great to have him back because he's that valuable to the company. So it's a big deal to have him back. Now, obviously, that they're back, or they're in the Amway Center. Now that they're back in the Amway Center, and obviously the COVID testing and the social distancing procedures and policies that are there, he's obviously more comfortable or feels comfortable enough to return. So that's great for them, and it's great for WWE to have him back on regular TV. I will say his teeth are a bit jarring. I don't know if you noticed that, but Roman Reigns has a new set of teeth, and man, they are some big pearly whites. If you ever seen Inspector Gadget, where the evil Inspector Gadget has like giant teeth, it looks exactly like that. It is pretty jarring. I'm going to take a while to get used to Roman Reigns' new teeth, I must say. Now, as we discussed earlier, is he going to be associated with Retribution? I don't think he will be. But there have been lots of stories now that are coming out and lots more details coming about this Roman Reigns return. Not a lot of people knew. Not a lot of people knew in the company. Even some people on the creative team didn't know that Roman Reigns was returning. However, I would be lying if I said that I was not aware that Roman Reigns was returning earlier on in the day. I had heard from some sources that Roman Reigns was going to be returning, and the reason that they had heard is because merchandise had been made for Roman Reigns' return. He was wearing a new shirt. It just got released onto WWE Shop the moment that SummerSlam went off the air, and that's how those things get leaked. So it was some people knew, some people didn't, but those people that had seen the stuff from WWE Shop knew that Roman Reigns was coming back. The stuff that I have heard since then, the extra details about his return, that WWE, Vince McMahon specifically, wants Roman Reigns to have a bit of a darker, more edgier character. Hence, Roman Reigns coming back, attacking both guys with steel chairs, spearing them both, talking some trash. They want to kind of take away that previous happy-go-lucky Roman Reigns, fan appealing, and get a bit of a more of a, I'm not going to say a heel, but more of a Steve Austin. Right, he was a babyface, but he's a heel babyface. I think that's what they want to go with Braun Strowman for this. With Roman Reigns for this, and that was always the plan. That was the plan for WrestleMania. He was going to beat Goldberg, and he was going to shift into this different style version of Roman Reigns. Those plans are exactly the same now. They're picking up where they left off. So that means that we're going to get this darker, more edgier version of Roman Reigns. That was always the plan at WrestleMania, and we're going to get that now. However, there is some concern now that the idea is for Roman Reigns to get the title off of the Fiend Bray Wyatt rather soon, because of course that was the plan at WrestleMania, was for Roman Reigns to beat Goldberg for the Universal title. They're going with the exact same plans now. The darker character, the grittier character. So the plans to make Roman Reigns the Universal Champion are exactly the same here. So some people that I've spoken to are suggesting that title change between Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt could actually happen as soon as next weekend at Payback. There have been rumors that potentially we could see Roman Reigns versus The Fiend next Sunday at Payback for the Universal title, or maybe a triple threat match between Wyatt, Strowman, and Roman Reigns there. I think that if they do the title change next weekend at Payback, then we'll have to have Braun Strowman involved, because if they don't, it just seems very strange for The Fiend to win the championship if it's going to go straight to Roman Reigns straight away. The Fiend, the whole point, if you ignore that Goldberg thing, the whole point with Roman Reigns and The Fiend is that The Fiend's unbeatable. Right, The Fiend doesn't do jobs. The Fiend doesn't lose to anyone. So it would be very strange for Roman Reigns, for The Fiend to win it, and then 7 days later he loses the title to Roman Reigns. I'm not sure I would be a big fan of that. That seems a bit strange to me. But if they make it a triple threat match, then they can always have Braun Strowman take the fall there, and we can have a Roman Reigns versus The Fiend feud heading into, I don't know, Survivor Series time or something along that lines. But ultimately, as I mentioned, it's great to have Roman Reigns back. It's great to see him back inside of a WWE ring. A massive, massive boost to WWE. Overall, a great show. Really enjoyed the show. I thought every match delivered. Some of the finishes I wasn't massively keen on, but I've got to say overall, it was an absolutely fantastic show. Fantastic show, fantastic finish, hot finish. People are excited for tomorrow night on Raw because of Keith Lee debuting. People are excited for Retribution. Some people looking forward Friday night for SmackDown because Roman Reigns is back. We'd heard the rumors that WWE moving to the Amway Center, it was going to see returns and a bit of a creative restart and the start of new angles, and that was confirmed tonight with the return of Roman Reigns. So really enjoyed the show and really enjoyed the ending, and I'm looking forward to see what WWE does next. So a thumbs up from me. You can't discredit WWE. I thought they did a good show tonight. Let's check in the chat before we round things up here. Tristan says, hi, how's it going, man? I'm confused. I'm so confused. I'm happy Roman Reigns returned, but is he a heel or a face because he attacked both? Braun is the heel and the Fiend is the tweener. That's the point. That's the point, is that we don't know. We know that there's going to be a darker, grittier character version of Roman Reigns. I would assume that he's probably going to be a babyface at the moment, but they're going to sort of feel their way through it. If they think that Roman Reigns' darker character works better as a heel, they'll turn him heel. Probably begrudgingly, but if they think that this darker version of Roman Reigns is a good anti-hero, a bit of a Steve Austin, then they'll do that. So I think WWE, like us here, we're going to see this darker version of Roman Reigns, but they're not sure whether it's going to be a full heel or a babyface yet. So if you have enjoyed this video, guys, this stream, please do smash a like on the like button. It really does help us out, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds on YouTube. So if you haven't already, smash a like. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to WrestleNews 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. We hit our goal of getting 700 subscribers over SummerSlam weekend. So I really do appreciate everyone that has taken the time to subscribe. If you're new to the channel, if you've subscribed for a long time, just know that I really do appreciate everyone that takes the time to watch these videos and listen to me talk about wrestling and discuss wrestling with you guys. I really do appreciate that. The next goal, of course, is 800 subscribers on that long road to 1,000. So if you are new, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe to WrestleNews 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. As always, we are accepting donations. You can do that at streamlabs.com/WrestleNews365. That's streamlabs.com/WrestleNews365. That's your way of supporting the channel if you like what we do, like what the content we provide, and you can kick something back to the channel. We would really appreciate that. Don't feel like you have to, though. It's just your way of showing that you can support us. You can also support us by purchasing our merchandise. It's at our merch store, which is wn365merch.com. That's wn365merch.com. You can get some t-shirts, some hoodies, some mugs, all of that fun WrestleNews 365 merch there. We're going to be uploading some new designs onto there soon, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. You can also follow us on our social media platforms. The handles are on the screen right now. The links are in the description box below. It's at 365Wrestle on Twitter and at WrestleNews365 on Facebook and Instagram. So be sure to give us a like or a follow there if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this stream or video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.